Nigeria's road to the 2027 general elections has entered another important phase. With just days ago, Osun State went to the polls in an election that had been closely watched as a test of the country's electoral preparedness ahead of the 2027. Of course, that election produced Governor Ademola Adeleke as the governor who's been re-elected in Osun State. But now, with the election over, attention is turning to what worked, what did not work, and what lessons INEC, security agencies, and political parties and voters can take forward. But while the Osun election offered a practical test of the electoral process, another development has put the spotlight on the people at the center of that process. Now, the presidential candidates and political parties have signed a national peace accord ahead of the 2027 elections, committing to issue-based campaigns and peaceful conduct. Yet, the absence of some major political actors, including ADC's presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar, has already generated debates about the strength and effectiveness of the agreement. So, after Osun, and ahead of what promises to be a fiercely contested 2027 election, are Nigeria's electoral institutions and political actors truly ready for the 2027 general election? My name is Victor Ake, and this is Road to 2027. Before we dive even further, let's get straight to the top political stories of the day. Now, here are the top political stories making headlines this beautiful evening. Nigeria has officially entered the campaign season ahead of the 2027 presidential election, with President Bola Tinubu seeking a second term against 18 other presidential candidates. The race is already drawing comparisons with 2023, when Tinubu defeated Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi in a three-way contest. This time, however, the opposition remains divided, raising questions about whether it can consolidate its votes against the ruling All Progressives Congress. The economy and insecurity are expected to dominate the campaign. A recent SBN intelligence survey found that nearly 80% of Nigerians believe the country is heading in the wrong direction, with economic hardship and insecurity ranking among their biggest concerns. Campaign spending will also be significant. Under the Electoral Act 2026, each presidential candidate can spend up to 10 billion naira, putting the combined spending ceiling for the 19 presidential candidates at 190 billion naira. With campaigning now officially underway, the battle for 2027 has moved from political positioning to the open contest for voters. Meanwhile, Osun State Governor Ademola Adeleke has received his certificate of return from INEC, formally recognizing his victory in the state's governorship election. Adeleke secured 511,067 votes, defeating his closest challenger, APC's Bola Oyebamiji, who polled 444,815 votes. ADC's Najim Salang came third with 17,180 votes. The result gives Adeleke another term in office and provides an important political boost for the People's Democratic Party ahead of the 2027 general election. Let's make that correction. Ademola Adeleke, of course, has now moved to the Accord Party, and so this boost is more for the Accord Party, ahead of the 2027 general election. Now, for the APC, the outcome highlights the challenge of winning back states controlled by opposition parties. But beyond Osun, the election could offer political parties valuable lessons about voter behavior, campaign strategies, and the issues influencing electoral decisions. Now, with the 2027 campaign now officially underway, Osun's result is likely to be closely studied by both the ruling party and opposition as they prepare for the bigger national contest. Now, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has declared that the 2027 presidential election will be his final attempt to become Nigeria's president. Atiku, who is contesting under the African Democratic Congress, made the declaration in a Hausa language interview, ruling out another presidential bid in 2031 if he loses the 2027 election. The former vice president has contested the presidency several times, including in 2023, when he finished second behind President Bola Tinubu. Atiku is urging Nigerians with permanent voter cards to participate actively in the election. He also encouraged voters to remain at their polling units after voting and monitor the counting process. He dismissed concerns about his ability to handle the demands of the presidency, insisting that he remains physically fit to govern. But perhaps the bigger picture or the bigger question is whether Atiku and other opposition figures can overcome the visions and prevent the splitting of opposition votes. For Atiku, however, the message is clear. 2027 is his final shot at the Nigerian presidency. Well, finally, on the top political stories, as political campaigns for the 2027 elections begin, the National Broadcasting Commission has warned media organizations and online platforms against spreading misinformation and inflammatory content. The NBC is urging broadcasters, online publishers, and bloggers to ensure accuracy, fairness, and responsibility in their election coverage. Licensed broadcasters have specifically been reminded to provide fair, balanced, and equitable coverage without using their platforms to promote or suppress particular political parties, candidates, or viewpoints. The Commission has also warned against presenting unverified political claims, allegations, statistics, or assertions as facts. The warning comes as Nigerians are expected to encounter an increasing volume of political content across television, radio, and social media throughout the campaign period. And for the media, the 2027 election will therefore be a major test of professionalism and editorial responsibility. The NBC's message here is clear. As politicians campaign for votes, the media must ensure that the information reaching voters is credible, balanced, and responsible. And those are the top political stories for you today. But let's go on a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue with the program this evening. Stay with us. Glad to have you back. You're still watching Road to 2027. And of course, Nigeria's journey towards the 2027 general elections has entered another critical phase. Earlier on, we did mention the recently concluded Osun governorship election, which was closely watched as a test of the country's electoral preparedness, particularly the ability of INEC and other stakeholders to deliver a credible, peaceful, and transparent election. Now, with the election now concluded, attention has shifted to what worked, what did not work, and the lessons that can be taken forward to the 2027 general elections. Now, while earlier assessments have pointed to areas of progress, concerns around vote buying, electoral irregularities, and other challenges show that there is still work to be done. And as the political season officially gathers momentum, another development has also been put on the spotlight, talking about the conduct of the political actors themselves. On Tuesday, August 18th, presidential candidates and political parties signed a national peace accord ahead of the 2027 elections, committing themselves to peaceful and issue-based campaigns and rejecting violence, hate speech, and other forms of inflammatory conduct. However, the absence of some major political figures, including President Bola Tinubu, who was represented by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, and the ADC presidential candidate as well, Atiku Abubakar, has generated questions about the significance and effectiveness of the accord. So while we're wondering, why Osun has given us an opportunity to assess the preparedness of the electoral system, the peace accord raises another question. Are the politicians themselves prepared to play their part in delivering a peaceful and credible 2027 election? Well, these are questions that are begging for answer. Meanwhile, to help us examine these issues and what they mean for Nigeria's journey to 2027, we're joined by Dr. Kaj Ononoju, an economics, public affairs analyst, and director general of the Heritage Center in Abuja. Dr. Ononoju, well, thank you for being here with us. All right, we're going to be joined just very briefly by Dr. Ononoju. But before he comes on board, let's quickly take that report about the peace accord that was recently signed by the presidential candidates. And let's get to watch and hear what some of their promises, of course, were. Stay with us.
Speaking on Tuesday in Abuja through the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, at the signing of the peace accord organized by the National Peace Committee, President Tinubu stressed that political campaigns must strengthen rather than tear Nigeria's social fabric.
Signing this peace accord is a solemn pledge to the Nigerian people that we as leaders, will put the nation's interest above personal or partisan ambitions. I call on all Nigerians, civil society organizations, our foreign partners, and the media to join us in deepening and building a stronger, more vibrant, democratic society. Democracy is not just about periodic elections that get politicians into government positions. Democracy is about how citizens participate in the affairs of their nation, build trust in public institutions, engage civically, and work together for good governance and a more just and equitable society.
The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC, Professor Joash Amupitan, urged political parties and candidates contesting the 2027 general elections to uphold the commitment contained in the National Peace Accord. He assured that INEC would remain neutral, transparent, and improve its result management process.
The 2027 general election presents complex social, economic, security, and developmental questions and demand rigorous, intellectual, and policy-focused debates. Nigerians do not want insults. They want solutions. They deserve to hear clear, concrete, and measurable manifestos detailing how political parties intend to drive economic growth, bolster national security, expand infrastructure, improve healthcare, modernize education, and foster social inclusion. Today, this accord is a solemn pledge to elevate public discourse to these substantive issues. By signing this accord, we are committed to an issue-based campaign. This is a significant departure from the politics of character assassination, identity manipulation, and inflammatory rhetorics.
After signing the Peace Accord, African Action Congress presidential candidate Omoyele Sowore called on the organizers to institute a justice accord instead, arguing that peace agreements are meaningless without accountability. Presidential candidate of the Nigeria Democratic Congress, Peter Obi, implored Nigerians not to vote for politicians who violate electoral peace agreements in the forthcoming 2027 general elections.
It's one of our national election rituals. We also attend not because we believe in it, it's because we have time on our hands. And also, in some regard, it's an opportunity to socialize with the other presidential candidates. This also presents an opportunity for Nigerians to know who the candidates are. This is the first time all the candidates will sit together. So maybe what the peace accord needs to do is also have a justice accord that will
Well, we're now being joined by Dr. Ononuju. Dr. Ononuju, thank you for joining us on Road to 2027 this evening. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, glad to have you. Now, before we start talking about the peace accord, let's take you back a little bit to the Osun State governorship election that held on the 15th of August, just last week Saturday. Let's look at the big picture there. Beyond the outcome. When you look beyond Adeleke's victory, what in your assessment do you think is the biggest political lesson, from the Osun governorship election?
What I would say is, in Osun, the Adelekes did mobilize the people of the state properly, and we could see, despite the APC taking 1 million governors there, and everybody there trying to ramp, it's good that they have Davido. Davido played a very great impact in trying to bring international attention to what was going on in Osun State. That is very important. Not just for the opposition to be talking and making noise, they should have that capacity to incite the international community to take interest in what's going on in Nigeria. Because the APC became afraid of what could happen if they go on to do what they normally did in Edo State. That could just become an issue. The people need to be ready to defend their votes. As you saw from all the experiences we got in Osun, the people who voted, the people who made sure the collection was done properly, They knew what to do, and they stayed there to defend their votes. That, I think, is the standard that the rest of the country should learn. If we can do this across the country, these things will work out well. Never mind those who are threatening that if they were sent to Osun, they will steal the ballot, they will do. That's nonsense. Nobody can ever, boast that you could be the chief dog that can steal the votes and then make the will of the people not come true. That's not true. We have to be able to take risk to defend our votes in our democracy if we seek the democracy to actually be real.
All right. Now, let's talk about INEC a little bit more now. Because INEC in the past had positioned the 2026 off-cycle elections as part of its preparation, for the 2027 general election. Now, if you do recall, the INEC chairman said that lessons from Ekiti, Osun, and other recent elections would feed into the 2027 general election preparations. And INEC also said that they expected to deploy about 1.4 million ad hoc personnel across more than 176,000 polling units for the 2027 elections. Here's my question. After watching what happened in Osun, how prepared would you say INEC really is for an election in scale of 2027?
INEC has always been very prepared for all our elections. INEC was prepared in 2023. INEC is also prepared for tomorrow's election, and as we saw in the weekend, the problem we have is the politicians. When the politicians just want to steal outrightly, you saw what happened in 2023. As the results were being collected and they were coming in, the politicians quickly got INEC to switch off the server. And when we said what happened, they said there was a glitch. That glitch was simply to stop the INEC arranged collation. Then they started writing result by the long hands. And as we were sleeping, they announced that result. And of course, another thing is the judiciary. If the judiciary was captured, as Buhari did, removing Justice Onogen because he knew what he was going to do. And then the rest now became history. INEC is always ready to conduct free and fair election. The problem we have is the politicians and, of course, the people who are the voters having the will to defend their votes. As you saw in Osun, the politicians saw that the people of Osun had the political will to defend their votes. That's why they were careful. They didn't want trouble. If they made anything like they did in Edo State, the people in Osun will have given them so much trouble that the international community will come in. Don't forget, it's very dicey. The Americans and other people are very, very interested in what's going on in our country. Let us use that opportunity to defend our votes and insist that the votes count. And all it takes is coordination. But of course, you saw what happened. The opposition also need to come together, because if you look at the weekend, the people of Osun came together. No matter who gave them money, they voted together to return their governor, and that was exactly what happened, and the governor won. So for me, we need to have the political will to defend that vote. We need to have the political will to, no matter who tried to induce us, do the right thing. That is the only way we can change this country. Because those who are very criminally minded, we intend to steal our country by stealing our votes and forcing voter suppression so that only their will come to pass.
Dr. Ononuju, you said INEC has always been ready, but the problem is the politicians, right? You talked about the BVAS having a glitch in 2023, which, of course, according to what we have been told...
It never had glitch. That was nothing like that.
But
it was the politicians
you did
who
mention
seized
that.
it. Listen to me. INEC was, because if you saw, even when they switched off the server, when it came back on, the results started pouring down. INEC has always been ready. It is the politicians that will always move in. And of course, with very corrupt judges, they will go there. If the tribunal, if the judiciary is not willing to do its job, because judges are suddenly paid to become compromised, and we keep quiet, this will continue. As I continue to say, if the society is not willing to actually show the politicians that they will not take the nonsense, politicians will continue to have their way.
Right.
But if we tell them we don't want that, we organize properly, like you saw in Osun, the people will have their way.
All right. Now, let's just get this clear, because again, INEC is an independent body, correct? And
no, INEC is not independent when the politicians muzzle it to accept that there was a glitch when there was no glitch. Because the company that owned the server said there was no glitch. The politicians said, shut up, there was a glitch. What about the voter suppressions you saw in Lagos and other places? It is the politicians. And these things go on because the people allow them to do it.
So let's get it clear. Because we're talking about INEC being ready, and we're also talking about interference, of the politicians into INEC. If you're saying INEC has always been ready, and INEC is the independent National Electoral Commission, that is what it is. It means that they're independent of the politicians as it is. So if INEC is ready and they're still being infiltrated and still being influenced by politicians, would you say that is a readiness there? Shouldn't there be a law to deter the politicians from interfering?
Listen, even in the judiciary itself by law is supposed to be independent. INEC by pronouncement is supposed to be independent. But when the politicians move in and to seize the structure, look at the behavior of Mr. Yotola. He was all over the place. The seizure of the local government funds by the presidency, it was Oyetola's doing. The arrest of all those party stalwarts of the Accord Party in Osun State was all instrumented by Mr. Yotola. It is when we allow these things to continue to occur that these things will sustain. We need to find a way to pay money to lobbyists abroad who will make sure that international governments have their eyes and their ears in what's going on in Nigeria. It's when the international community looks away, they don't care. That's when the politicians who are locally available will now steal our elections. INEC has always been ready. The judiciary have always been ready. It is the inducement of these bodies by the politicians that brings the undermining aspect of our elections.
Let's quickly talk about security agencies as well, because of course, if you take a mind back to the build-up of the Osun State governorship election, there are reports of politically motivated violence, which led to the death of over 20 persons. And of course, on the day of the election, we didn't get so much of the reports of those violence going on. But would you say that the deployment of security agency or personnel in Osun State helped to maintain a free, fair, credible, and of course, a violent-free election as well?
I don't think so. The people themselves of Nigeria have always known how to manage themselves. Deployment of soldiers or wherever is not a problem. It is the politicians. When they want to cause mayhem, no matter what happens, they will use their talk to undermine. Because they control the power and control the postings of these security agents, the security agents kind of show them regard and show them respect. The problem is the people. If the people lose the will to defend their votes, then the criminals among the politicians will jump in to undermine the process. Let the people show them, as you were seeing from television clippings and video recordings in Osun, the people were willing to protect their votes. The people were out there to do the right thing to actually keep their voting there. And you saw some videos showed the police couldn't even intimidate the people. The soldiers couldn't intimidate the people. The people have to show that they want to vote and have their votes counted, not allow politicians to start taking their games to court. We don't need to go to court. You saw in Osun State, we didn't need to go to court to have the results. Right. The problem we have are bent and very fraudulent politicians undermine the process and getting everybody and the process compromised.
All right, Dr. Katch. Now, we're also being joined by Charles Ononoju. Charles Ononoju is a foreign affairs analyst. Charles, good evening and welcome to the program as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
All right. Of course, I've been speaking with Dr. Katch, and he has insisted so much that the problem we have in our electoral system are the politicians, basically. But let's talk about the credibility problem here as well. How much of Nigeria's electoral problem is actually a crisis of trust?
Well, you see, I will be a lot more, I would go back, I'm certainly not a politician, but let me be very clear. The nature of power, the structure of power has not been sufficiently interrogated for us to understand the behavior of politicians or even the electorates. The question is, what is at stake? Why are they desperate? Whether vote counts or vote do not count, the most important thing is to understand the nature of power and how it is exercised. How much accountable are power held to? How much responsible? These are fundamentals. If we do not resolve these fundamentals, the specific issues about the behavior of politicians cannot be satisfactorily explained. It cannot be satisfactorily understood, because the question, the driving force, is the nature of power. The exercise of power without responsibility, the exercise of power without accountability, these are the critical factors that underline the behavior of the politicians. So at the end of the day, every politician to some extent is the same thing. What is at stake is very huge, is very, very consequential for them. And the extent they go. So if we really want to sanitize the process, we first need to interrogate the nature of power. You see, I might be too abstract, but this boils down to the question, because it's simply a matter of, why do people want power so desperately? Because they exercise it without accountability. They exercise it without responsibility. What we see in Osun is just a manifestation of the structural defects in the nature of our power holding. So it is a matter of, I could make an illustration, a man carrying a heavy luggage, and everybody is saying your luggage is bent one side. And the man said, you are complaining about why my luggage is bent one side. Have you watched my legs? My legs are bent one side, so obviously my luggage cannot be straight. So the fundamental question that has not been seriously interrogated in Nigerian commentary issues is the nature of power. So I would like to say very much that no matter how credible the process might sound, no matter how free or fair the election might be, the truth remains that the nature of power is sufficient incentive to bring people to do what is beyond the electoral law. You said people shouldn't. How much accountable our politicians are held after they have won power? How much accountability do they render? How much responsible are they? How much committed to their order? What we see is patronage. What we see in Osun State is, okay, fine. He won. Now he has won. What happens? Is that enough to guarantee good schools? Is that enough to guarantee good health facilities? These are the questions. You see, so I believe that we have not really approached the matter with the structural foundation. We'll be beating about the bush. The behavior of politicians is a non-issue. If you moderate power, if you redefine power within the context of responsibility and accountability, the behavior of politicians will be moderated. Not just the politician, but every other political actor acts within the confines of that decent pattern.
Okay. Well,
it is run with it, grab it up with it, get it by all means, do or die. That is the nature of the game. So it's about any particular politician, about the nature of power and what is at stake.
Right. We've always questioned that particular issue as well. Every time we talk, we always get to remind our viewers that politics is not a do or die affair. If the people want you, they should be able to vote for you. But let's talk about the Electoral Act itself right now. So see that INEC is working with the Electoral Act 2026, including reviewing its regulations and guidelines for political parties to align with the new law. Now, for you, what practical difference should Nigerians be expecting from the Electoral Act 2026 when they go to vote in 2026, just based on your own observation now?
Well, I just want to point out, has there been any shortage of electoral laws to guide elections? Right from the very beginning of 1979 up to now, has there been shortage of electoral laws? Has there been shortage of guidelines and rules explicitly drawn up by the Electoral Commission? And of course, the nature of the Electoral Commission itself does not even guarantee its independence. It does not guarantee its independence. The nature of the electoral umpire itself, who are there, it is not the independence of the institution. You cannot talk about the independence of the institution when the personnel are not obviously independent. So you could have independence as a formality. How does independence reflect in the conduct and behavior of critical stakeholders within the umpire? institutional independence that is compromised by personnel who are within the institution is a mere decoration. It has no substance. It has all the accoutrement of formality. But does it have in practical terms independence as it is? So the question is not about the rules. We have rules that have been there right from 1979, electoral rules. But to what extent do this apply? To what extent? I've told you the nature of the behavior of both the electorate and the politicians. And if we want to really get a who, the most important thing is to bring sanity in the way power is defined and exercised.
Right.
Except that it will be an affair. It will be more desperate. Take, for example, I read, and I'm sure you read, the Minister of Abuja, Mr. Wike, suggesting that if the president had wanted or should desperately, he should have sent him. What does that mean? What does that tell you? It's simply that people are wasting it. So Osun was a benevolent gift of the president to the Osun people because he didn't want it. Okay, what of those he wanted? So people shouldn't waste their time going there because the president wanted it. So if we come to what is the discussion all about? If Mr. Wike has told us frankly that why he did not go to Osun is, according to him, the president did not desperately want Osun State. Okay, now the president desperately wants the presidency. So why should we bother about 2027? Why should we be used for coronation if the idea is the what he wants, he gets, and the one he does not want, he can dash Nigerians? So these are questions that compromise the so institutional integrity of INEC. And what has INEC said about it? Have they refuted it? Have they called him to order? Have they said you slandered us? Have they said so? Has INEC said that, Mr. Wike, you slandered us and undermined the credibility of INEC and the process of free and fair elections? So why are people why are people so vested with these lifeless rules that gets nowhere?
All right, Mr. Charles. Let me quickly run down to Dr. Koch again. Dr. Koch, you're still with us, correct? Dr. Koch? All right, Dr. Koch is still here with us. Dr. Koch, you've also questioned the credibility of INEC. You've questioned their independence as it is. And of course, Mr. Charles has also talked about, also questioned the independence of INEC. But coming to you now, Dr. Koch, what safeguards should be in place to protect INEC from political pressure?
Well, there are no safeguards because our system is that bad that he who appoints is the man that puts pressure on who he appoints. And so far, our constitution allows the incumbent party, the incumbent president, to make these appointments. But if the people are willing to say we wouldn't allow this to happen, don't forget, you can only rig in places where you're popular. And also when the security services can be compromised, as we saw in the last elections, even during the issues of voter suppressions in Lagos, those were blatantly against the law. Yet they went on because Buhari and his gang were so corrupt. And even when they annulled the election and then wrote out the results, and according to Tinubu, getting him now to buy the presidency, you heard what he said. He bought the presidency of them after they annulled the election, and they didn't know what to do with it. But that was what also the reasons why, after he bought it from them, they came back for him to share them into power. He refused. What happened? They started fighting him. And as I'm talking to him, Najwa El-Rufai is in prison. And of course, Mr. What's his name? Malami has had the properties he stole taken off him. These were all powerful people that made decisions. These were all part and parcel of those who sold the presidency to Mr. Tinubu. And he got angry.
Dr. Koch,
Yes.
let me get it clear here, because you've made a very strong allegations here. You said that the president bought the presidency.
I am not. These are just the truth. I am trying to tell you our history. I am still alive. Mr. El-Rufai is still in cell, locked up. Why? Because he said they gave the presidency to Tinubu. Tinubu said no, he bought it. Publicly said he bought it with his money.
Well,
and so if he bought it with money, why would you come and be asking him?
Dr. Koch, please let's have a conversation. I've never heard that allegation. And if I'm going to take you back to the case
where you've
of,
never had a
let,
lot of
let me come
citizens
to
went to him
let me come
during
to you.
the time of the protest. Let me finish.
No, Dr.
Let
Cash,
me
please.
finish. I'm a Nigerian.
Let's
If
clarify
anybody
certain
feels
things.
anything I said is
Please,
not there, they
please,
can go to court.
Dr. Cash, please
President
hold on.
told elders that he
Please
bought the
hold on, Dr.
presidency.
Cash. Dr. Cash, please hold on. Let's have a
Say
conversation,
you've
please.
not heard it. I have heard it, and I'm telling you what I've heard.
We will go
Every
somewhere.
Nigerian heard it. He
We
said he
will,
bought it with
we
his
will get
money.
there.
Okay?
We'll get there. Let me
Good.
clarify something, please. Because you also mentioned the issue of El-Rufai and why El-Rufai is in detention. To take you back.
El-Rufai is in detention as a consequence of that fight they had among themselves.
So let me
APC
clarify.
members
Let me
about
clarify
sharing power.
Let me clarify what is the fact that we have on the news as well. El-Rufai did come out to say that he tapped the phone of the National Security Advisor, No Ribadu.
That is after the fact. I'm telling you about what caused the implosion, what caused the fight inside the APC as they became the ruling party and they did not know how to share the power.
So you have
What
insider
El-Rufai
knowledge.
did
That's what you're saying to
is
us.
after the fact.
You have
Listen,
insider knowledge.
what El-Rufai did, his statements are simply after the fact. I'm now telling you about the crisis that brought such implosions. And I'm trying to explain to you, they were all members of the same party. They got power. Sharing the power is what brought the crisis. The implosion came, and today you're telling me of what El-Rufai said. I'm telling you of what led to what he said. He is today in detention. Mr. Malami has also had his own. And I'm trying to tell you that these are the same gang, it's the same people. So if people can organize to take power this way without going through the honest democratic process, sometimes the problem is after you grab power that way, and people said we are suddenly under state capture, their problem then became how do they share power? And I'm telling you, these are the consequences of not allowing for free and fair election. If Tinubu had won that power, free and fair, there would not be a need for Mr. El-Rufai to come there to say, share me into power. We got the power. We gave you presidency. And he said, no, you did not give me the presidency. I bought it with my money.
All right, Dr. Catch, we get your point there, but I will come back to you just in a moment again. Let me quickly go back to Mr. Charles. Mr. Charles, let's quickly jump to the presidential peace accord, right? Let's get that conversation as well. August 18th, 2026, presidential candidates, of course, and other political stakeholders signed the 2027 National Peace Accord. This is my question to you. Nigeria has signed peace accord in the past, yet we also have witnessed violence, political violence in the past. What do you think Nigeria should expect, or why do you think Nigeria should expect this particular peace accord to achieve, or what do you think Nigeria should expect this particular peace accord rather to achieve?
Now, let me be very clear. You see, peaceful electoral process, credible electoral process, without interrogating the underlying structural issues that relate to the desperation for power, that relate to the reckless exercise of power, that relate to unaccountability, lack of accountability, corruption, and lack of responsibility in the exercise of power will be a waste of time. I don't know how long those theaters will continue. Those theaters, and it's not about assisting a political party. I heard my co-panelists speaking about Tinubu border. Who have not bought? Who among them has not bought? Who among them has not rigged?
Oh, Mr. Charles. Okay, I think there's been a fluctuation of network there, but let's quickly get to Dr. Koch as well, whilst we're trying to reconnect with Mr. Charles. Now, Okay, Mr. Charles, go ahead. I think you're back with us. Go ahead, please.
People continue to be growing underrepresented, continue growing cheated out. And I wouldn't have bothered about the consequences of what appears to be a perennial tear. The cost of human suffering and made not involved. I would have enjoyed the tear, but the cost of it in terms of human suffering, in terms of human lives, is too horrendous to not. So this theater, when will we get sober? You're doing peace. These are theaters. those who author it and those who participate are exceptionalists. Either somebody is not interested in resolving Nigerian fundamental contradiction, or somebody is not even understanding of this contradiction.
Mr. Charles. Mr. Charles.
Yeah.
Apologies.
Yeah.
We're struggling to make out your words very clearly. I think it's because of the poor network where you are at this point in time. But thank you for being here with us. Let's quickly just get down to Mr. Koch. Mr. Koch, let's conclude the conversation this evening. What would you like to see political parties and presidential candidates do differently this time around?
I want them to organize like their delegate governor organized in Osun State. I want them, because you see, the Osun election had its own foreign component. The behavior of Davido in trying to use his star power to get international attention was very important. Now, that the opposition could do by hiring lobbyists who will be able to get them to gain the interest of the international development partners that we have to focus and be interested in our elections. Not just whoever comes, that will be enough. And I'm very happy for the interest the United States is currently putting in Nigeria and its elections. I think those things make a lot of sense. Okay. Secondly to that, the organization in Osun State saw that the people were well organized, that even those who were giving money that should be used to induce them, they took the money and they voted their conscience. Thirdly, the people stood there, made sure their results were properly entered, made sure that their votes count. And this is what most people don't do. Don't just tell the people to go and vote. No, let them vote and stay there. Let their votes be counted. Let the people who are sending the results, who are doing the transmission, transmit properly. Let them question, why was it once the result transmission got to 80%, then the remaining 17 or 13% suddenly couldn't come on time? That's wrong. Right. We should always put pressure on INEC to make sure that the transmission is continuous, not you stop somewhere then trying to get somebody to add some fraudulent figures, and when they couldn't do that, you then go on to announce. No, let us have a consistency in the issue of uploading of the results. Right. And that we can do with the people being very, very alert, and the people also pushing INEC wherever they might be, wherever the polling booth is or collection center, to do the right thing. Okay. The people also have to work for us to get it right. All right. Now, let us go back again to where we started talking about the Osun State election. Report reaching me right now is that the APC has said that they are going to consult their legal team, and it's possible that they might be contesting this election result in court. This is according to Sahara Report. What's your take on this? Well, that is APC for you. They could do anything. They could go to court. They probably might find a judge or two that they think they can get compromised. But the truth is, Governor Adeleke won his election. And Nigerians are happy that for once we've seen a good election. But there's nothing wrong with APC going to court if they feel that something is wrong somewhere. That's the essence of judicial challenges after electoral outcomes. Right. I have nothing against that. They can go to court, but do not go to court with the mindset of finding judges that you can induce and force into compromise. Go to court with honest result sheets. Show them how you've been cheated and how a court party should have won. That is all right. A court should also be ready with their defenses wherever the APC brings a contest. That, I think, makes a lot of sense. All right. Thanks so much, Dr. Koch Ononuju, for your time with us today. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me, too. All right. Have a good evening. Good evening, my dear. All right. We'll be speaking with Dr. Koch Ononuju, public affairs analyst, and Charles Onaniju as well, foreign affairs analyst, and they've been giving us questions talking about the elections that just happened in Osun State, INEC preparations, and of course the presidential peace accord that has been signed as well. But let's quickly go on a break. When we come back, we'll give you the electoral word of the week. Just stay with us.